Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to go over my top 5 tips that I think every single Aphelios player needs to know. Now, my goal behind this video is to make you a better Aphelios player, as well as to give you a better understanding of the champion as a whole. I put timestamps in 2 different places. One place is going to be at the top of the page where you can just skip to the next tip, as well in the description where you can just click, as well as it's going to segment the scrolling bar that is going to be under if you would like to just skip to the next tip if you already have a good understanding of what I'm trying to convey in that tip. Next up, I am a little bit limited with this format. I don't want these videos to run too long and waste too much time, so I am only doing the 5 tips. And if you guys have your own tips that I wasn't able to cover, just because I'm only able to do 5, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. If you're new to my channel, I'm LowFit. I do educational content, to tips videos, guide videos, also stream over on Twitch. I'm going to put a link in the description for that. In my Discord, if you have any questions, you can contact me directly there. And with all that out of the way, let's jump into tip number 1. Alright, and jumping into tip number 1, let's get into some basics to just really get your guys' fundamentals really solid. Now, there's 2 basic summoner spells that you can look to use when you are playing Aphelios in the bot lane. First being Heal, which is kind of a catch-all that is pretty useful in a lot of different situations. And second, which is Cleanse, that is really good in this current meta where there are a lot of really strong pick champions that are being played. I think one of the highest win rate junglers right now is Elise, and Cleanse is really good against that. A very commonly support played that is Leona. So if you see any kind of combination like that, Cleanse can be hyper effective, particularly against things like Ashe and Varus that are starting to see a little bit of prominence. So make sure that you aren't just always blind picking Heal and not really looking at what the enemy team is, because if you are able to minimize the threat on your Aphelios and you're able to just start pumping out damage in the late game, that is really where you can get a lot of damage off, as well as it's very nice to get that Cleanse to just sometimes take off those ignite ticks and those all-ins in the early levels that can be so impactful. So the next thing I want to talk about that should really, if you just take one thing out of this video, I would love for you guys to take this out, and that is the Aphelios win rate by game length. And this really displays how Aphelios is almost unmatched in how strong he can get into the late game with his different abilities, and that is he is has a very low win rate in the really short games, and it starts just slowly going up until boom, 40-minute plus games. A 55% win ratio is huge when you are playing Aphelios. So looking to kind of turtle and really just scale for the late game when you're in game states where the enemy team is winning. Say they have something like a Draven and a Nautilus and they're just really trying to bully you out of lane. Maybe you don't really want to look for those 50-50s because you can get punished quite heavily if they're able to get that kill. So always look to scale at every single possible situation, because Aphelios is just such a monster in the late game, as well as you really need to be focusing on your CS, because the quicker you can get to a late game state, the more games you are going to win. So really try to shoot, if you're in those the low elos where my videos are targeted for the people is like bronze, silver, and gold, you really just want to try and get it as high as possible to get to that 7, 8, 9, 10 CS a minute, and you really will start seeing a lot of benefits coming out of Aphelios. Second is the builds. I think the absolute core is you really need to have the Runon's Hurricane with the Infinity Edge. I think this is just such a strong 2-item power spike. The reason why Runon's is extremely good, second, is because it will apply all of your marks to your targets. Next up, with the different runes, the one that is a lot more popular is definitely the Conquer, which I think is really strong because of its synergy and your ability to stack it up extremely quickly when you have your red gun, and the amount of healing that comes out of that on top of Conquer can just be absolutely disgusting. And then Press the Attack is a little bit more of a maybe a little bit more of a shorter trade and not really taking those long consistent trades. I always like taking Conquer on Aphelios when I play him. And that will wrap up tip number 1. Alright, and getting into tip number 2, let's talk about all of the different weapons and their strengths and weaknesses and where you can look to use them in different skirmishes. So the number 1 weapon that you would want to use in the team fights that provide you the maximum damage is going to be the Infernum Flamethrower, because it has a strong ability to damage quite a lot of people at one time and really just take advantage of clumped up targets. That happens very often in solo queue. Second, the weapon that I really like and I think is one of the best offhand weapons is the Gravitum. Being able to quickly switch off to the Gravitum and just really mark the targets just like this, is going to be a great way to just get a lot of extra CC on your team. So now that we've gone over this, let's just deplete the ammo on our flamethrower, and then let's talk about the sniper rifle. So the sniper rifle is going to be the best in the laning phase. It's going to allow you to auto from a really safe range. Say there's maybe a really strong mage, maybe something like a LeBlanc on the enemy team in team fights is constantly looking to pick you. This is going to be a great item or a great weapon to be using, because you are going to be able to stay at a very long range and really make them use all of their gap closing abilities to get on top of you, not to chase you after they got on top of you by just running on top of you. So look to use your sniper rifle when you are in maybe a little bit of a rough lane matchup. Maybe you're against something like a Draven Leona in the bot lane and you really just need to CS and start scaling up a bit. This is a great time to use your caliber rifle. And let's get this done. Okay, this is a extremely strong main hand weapon in the Severum, and it provides you excellent dueling potential because it is going to give you a shield and it is going to give you a rather large healing. Now, one thing that you want to keep in mind, it is going to apply the mark of your secondary weapon. So having a good secondary weapon is going to be really important. It's going to have different effects for that. So having the Infernum Flamethrower is going to be really strong, but my personal favorite combo with the main hand Severum and dueling potential is the Crescendum, because it is going to be able to just really stack up a lot of these extra bolts that you can throw off with your autos and just do an intense amount of damage. So always look for the dueling potential of red white. I think it is a extremely strong combo that can really allow you to 1v1 almost any ADC if you are at a similar type of item level. So those are kind of my quick and dirty guides for new players about these weapons. I heavily encourage you guys to experiment in different situations because you're going to start finding that different combos are going to be better in different areas. If you're maybe fighting around something like a Herald or a Dragon, it is going to be really beneficial for you to have a item like the turret. And now we'll wrap up this tip. Alright, and jumping into tip number 3, I want to go over something that is going to be extremely important for you to start understanding when you're playing Aphelios, and that is your ability to control choke points and where you should really look to fight around these particular areas, as they are going to come up quite commonly throughout your games, and I really want you guys to look to abuse it. Similar to maybe something like a Poppy fighting around walls, being able to smash people into walls is going to help you out a lot. Being in Aphelios and fighting in choke points is just going to allow you to hit quite a few different people and get off very large marks. So the obvious points are places, and you should always be keeping track of these timers, but the Baron Nashor and the Dragon fights are going to be great places for you to look to carry team fights, and there are so many choke points being here, 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 and up here, and then with the Dragon, here, 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 right down here. But one thing that you might have not thought about is by luring the different people into fights down in the bot lane when you are laning and really just fading down into the alcove can allow you to do some pretty nasty stuff when you are playing Aphelios and getting people into these kind of extra choke points that have been added for this season, which is really cool. So always look to use the alcove in these different situations, as it will augment Aphelios' power quite heavily. And that will wrap up this tip. Alright, and jumping into tip number 4 with Aphelios, I want to talk about something that is really going to separate you from other Aphelios players and what's going to make an extremely good Aphelios player as opposed to maybe a more average Aphelios player. So you have 2 different ways you can look to augment your ability to survive, and this is going to be extremely important because how Riot balanced Aphelios' kit is that they gave him an immense amount of damage and a little bit amount of his crowd control with the binding eclipse and with a couple other different items, but he is extremely susceptible to getting dove. So how you really want to look to counter this is if you recognize that you're playing against a bunch of assassins, Phantom Dancer can be a decent second item pickup if you don't want to go rush right into the Runaan's Hurricane for maximizing damage. You will do more damage overall if you are able to get off more auto attacks with your Phantom Dancer and you're just not getting one shot in the different team fights. However, getting these early Berserker Greaves can be extremely important because it's going to allow you to move around quicker. This is going to be a extremely important buy because he has no really big defensive skills or outs. He doesn't have a jump like Tristana. He's not extremely safe in that regard, so you really have to focus on positioning. Your positioning is so key, as well as keeping it moving. If you're just one of those people that are really bad at orb blocking, I'd recommend to just go into a different just go into a practice tool, just go in and just get his auto attacks down to a T, where you can keep moving and keep autoing in the different situations. Because if you are standing still in a team fight, you are just going to get absolutely blasted, because you're going to be a high value target that a lot of people are trying to kill. As well as just a small little quick tip here, guys. If you didn't know, with the Severum Scythe pistol, it will go through wind wall as it is an auto attack. It is not a projectile as other things, so the Braum shield will be unable to block it the same way it would the other projectiles from the different weapons. Kind of a weird small tip that I just wanted to give you guys there. So always look to position in extremely strong places where you're able to do damage, but as well as being safe, as well as there's so many things you need to focus on because you are an extremely susceptible champion, but you as well need to focus on ability usage. If you see a really high impact spell, and one that I always give as an example is something like a Fizz or a Zed ultimate, you should be positioning differently after the Fizz uses ultimate and before the Fizz. You have to be a little bit more safe, and you have to be moving around quite a bit more when he still has his ultimate up, because you're extremely susceptible to those kind of assassins. But when those abilities have been used maybe on different targets, that is when you can look to start pressuring quite a bit more in the different team fights. So again, just a quick overview: you want to be looking to orb blocking extremely well. You want to be adjusting your Phantom Dancer or Runon's second item pickup depending on the enemy team comp and how much threat is on you, as well as observing the ability usage cooldown window. And that will wrap up this tip for Aphelios. Alright, and jumping into the final tip with Aphelios that you can look to use quite regularly, and what I think is extremely important, is everyone knows what Aphelios does. Everyone has been punished extremely heavily by the Aphelios getting a multi-man ultimate. So how you can look to augment this is one thing that really stands out, and they've even nerfed this range, is his ultimate's range, and your ability to throw it from maybe a different corner or from Fog of War is really going to increase your overall accuracy with it. Now, you're still going to miss it. You're not always going to hit every single you're not going to get a 5-man ultimate every single time by throwing from Fog of War, but it will increase your overall accuracy and it will overall increase your win rate if you are landing more ultimates in games. So when you are looking to play Aphelios, maybe you're in this kind of situation and only the front lines are really fighting, maybe just ducking into the Fog of War and getting a really good ultimate off from there can be really important, because it is a very visual, I mean, your champion jumps up into the air and a huge blue fireball comes just rushing at them, so they are going to be extremely aware of that and looking to dodge it. So any way you can look to prolong their ability to see it is going to be extremely important with Aphelios. So always look to throw this ultimate from the Fog of War unless they are forced. I mean, a niche situation where you wouldn't have to look to do it from Fog of War is when people are running down in choke points and your allies are chasing them. They have really no option of trying to dodge left to right, because you will catch them anyways. But just a general rule of thumb, you always want to be looking to throw your Moonlight Vigil from Fog of War with its extremely long range. And that will wrap up my final tip, guys. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up in the comments down below, or you can join the Discord or the Twitch link that will be the pinned comment. And as always, guys, take it easy.